is happening, ladder climbers? I hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday. It is Monday after the holiday break. Well, some of us are working. Um, I'm not working in the corporate job. I'm not going back to work until the 4th of January, but I am working on the channel now that I'm feeling a lot better. But guys, I wanted to do something today. I wanted to make sure that I'm bringing you some really good information, and I have a fantastic guest that I'm going to be introducing you all to in this live stream today. Let me explain this. I was introduced to this guest by her specifically reaching out because one of the videos that we've posted on this channel touched her, right, to take action. And that video was the WGU ITM video that I made about management information systems at Western Governors University. And she applied. She took action, and she's going to be starting her studies in January, which is around the corner, guys. So New Year's resolutions, all that sort of stuff, she made those resolutions happen a lot earlier when she saw that video. So guys, I want to do this. I want to make sure that we have a good amount of people before we get started on this interview. So guys, if you're coming to us from anywhere in the world, leave your city and your state in the comment section. And I want to just quickly shout you out before we get started. Venator is in the house. I hope you're doing well, brother. I know you're coming to us from the UK. Who else is in here? Who else is in here right now? Leave me your city and your state so that I can quickly shout you guys out. I'm looking forward to this interview today because, there's something about me talking about information technology, but there's also something even better than me just talking about it. It's me talking to people about it, to give you their experiences, to share with you their experiences and different paths that we all have taken to get into information technology. And many of you are on the fence about getting into information technology. And there's multiple ways that you can do it. We talked about IT certifications. We talked about going the 4-year degree route. We talked about, just going to boot camp routes. There's many ways that you can actually get into information technology. And you're going to hear a story of a young lady named Ella who found her way into information technology and how she's going to share with you how she was able to do it and a little bit more about her background as well too. But let me do this. We got Venator in the house. We got King 318 in the house as well, coming to us from Louisiana. We got Professor Black Ops in the house as well, coming to us from Minneapolis or Indianapolis, Indiana. We got Tony Africa coming to us from Mombasa, Kenya. What's happening, Tony? I hope you're doing well. We got Helmet Chili. He's in Barbados right now, man. Oh, man, you just chilling right now in Barbados. I'm jealous, man. I'm jealous. Hot weather is nice. Yes, absolutely. We got Sport L coming to us from Detroit or Nashville, Detroit. Look at that, man. Look at that. We got some people in the house. Well, let me do this. Let me do this really fast. I want to introduce you all to Mrs. Ella Johnson. Ella, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing great today. Happy holidays, everybody.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to you too. First, tell me this. How was your holidays? You had a good Christmas? You celebrate Christmas?
I did. It was wonderful. It's warm here, or it's warmer here than in, Indianapolis. So I can't complain about the weather.
So before we even get there, tell people where you are located right now. You said it was warm.
So
Tell people where you're at.
I am in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh man, see, she is in the Sin City. She's actually in the Sin City right now, where it's nice and warm this time of the year. Did you get a chance to hit the strip or anything like that? Do anything cool around around the time of the holidays in Vegas?
Yeah, actually, last night I went to this like Persian nightclub. So that was new for me, listening to a lot of Persian music and interacting with people of different cultures. So that was really fun.
Awesome. Look at that. Awesome. We got Tiffany Wade in the house. We got Blind Guy, his wife, their life in the house. We got Joe Cinco in the house. And we got Ashton Jameis in the house as well. And Blind Guy and wife says, you know what? Welcome to Welcome to you, Miss Ella. Thanks for bringing the best vibes from Sin City. Look at that. Look at it. They already feeling your vibe already. Just chilling. Just chilling. Check it out. And PBO says, laughing my ass off. It is 60 degrees here today.
Ooh, that's cold. That's cold for me.
That is pretty cool compared to Las Vegas, though. So check this out, so Ella. Tell everybody who Miss Ella is. Come, give everybody a little bit of introduction to who you are, and then we'll get into your story. Tell everybody who you are.
Sure. So my name is Ella Tazuana Johnson. I am originally from Los Angeles, California. Been to a few different cities. I most recently was in DC, actually, before I moved to Vegas. I actually moved to Vegas because during the pandemic, my mom was struggling financially, and I was already working from home from the job that I had at the time. And I decided to move out to come and help support her. So that's just a little bit about where I come from, my little background. I went to Bucknell University for my undergrad. I studied linguistics and Arabic, actually, and minored in African studies as well. So I actually don't come from a STEM background or a business background or any sort of like quantitative educational bachelor's degree program. So everything that we're going to talk about today, as far as like my experience related to tech or related to IT, is all experience and all just learning as I've gone in the past few years.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Coming to us from the Sin City, lived out there in Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles is considered to be home, right? Lived in DC for quite some time. Is DC where you got to start into the tech world?
Yeah, DC is actually where I started my first corporate job in general. So I actually, after I graduated from college, I was working primarily in international development and like nonprofit space. And then I quickly sort of realized that I needed to make money. So I had to quickly pivot after maybe about a year. So I switched to finance. And ironically, I didn't really know anything about a stock and a bond then, but they still hired me. And I was really excited to just learn and grow in that space of private wealth management, investment management. And that's actually what brought me to DC in the first place. So I joined that company. I was there for a while, just learning the ins and outs of not only corporate America, but finance, just basics of like analytics, because we did do some analytical work back then. And then after that, I pivoted to where I work now, which is in IT management consulting.
Look at that. So we gotta unpack a lot of this. I think that's absolutely fantastic, right? You get a chance to do a liberal arts degree. And I want you to get to when we get to that, I want you to really get into what made you choose these degrees when you went to college, right? Because you said you got liberal arts and you actually did Arabics with was it African American studies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is fantastic, right? All these liberal arts, but these are degrees, right? That I actually did a live stream on yesterday, and I had a whole bunch of degrees that fell into the liberal arts degree, and I called them useless degrees because the return on investment, right, it's not very high at all. So I want you to kind of talk about, what made you decide to go into those degrees. But let me just make sure I understood what I heard you say. You actually got a liberal arts degree, majored in African American studies, Arabic as well too. You pivoted to finance, and then you did something on the wealth management side in the financial spectrum, and then you pivoted again to tech. Is that Did I hear that right?
Yes, that is correct.
That's dope. I think the combination of finance and tech, I think that's absolutely fantastic. But I just wanted to make sure I heard that right, because you are a very young lady still. I mean, like, you are absolutely young, but you've already had 3 transitions already within your career, and that's pretty awesome. I think that's pretty awesome. But tell me this. Tell me how it all started. Did your family go to college? Did they force you to go to college? Like, what made you go to college after you went to Bucknell, and what made you select the majors that you chose?
Yeah, good question. So, no, both my mom and my dad did not go to college. I'm first generation college student, and I'm going to be actually the first person to get my master's degree as well in my family. But what prompted me to want to go to college actually was when I was younger, my family became homeless, and I just remember getting bullied and, having to go to school and, living from like motel to motel and missing school sometimes because we had to do some paperwork and, things that I just were above me or my level of thought at that time. And I just knew that I didn't want to have to deal with that again in the future. And I knew that education was my ticket out. For some people, they have the privilege of having other ways to, to make it out. But for me, education was really the only way. And so I really worked my butt off in high school to get good grades, to try to get a scholarship or as many scholarships as I could to go to school. And I actually got a full tuition scholarship to Bucknell University my senior year of high school. And that's really what prompted me to leave. I wanted to go as far away from home as possible. So I went from LA to Pennsylvania for the 4 years. And when I was there, I had a lot of different interests. I mean, as someone who didn't have really a structure of what to study or what was, a quote unquote valuable degree, I just went for what interested me. I didn't really look at like, oh, okay, going in a STEM major is gonna, make me a lot of money. I wasn't thinking in that way compared to some of my peers. So for me, I was like, okay, I like the liberal arts. I like sociology. I like all of the, the people related majors, even though I knew they weren't as valuable, so to speak, as, a business degree or, even a natural science type of degree. I just wasn't interested in those topics. And I also wasn't strong in those topics at the time. So I figured sticking with liberal arts is probably my best bet. And linguistics came along because it's kind of technical if you really go into the nitty gritty of like semantics and syntax, but it just wasn't like quantitative like accounting might be or something like that. But I was okay with that because that's not I was so against like the corporate world and going into business anyways. So it didn't really matter to me. I thought I wanted to go into international development when I was in college. And so that was my primary focus. And that's why I actually focused on Arabic as well. Partially because I wanted to go into international development, but also because I was just ignorant on the Middle East at that time. And I felt like by trying to learn the language, I could also simultaneously try to learn more about the culture as well. And for us coming from the US, we don't, what background do we have related to the Middle East or the Arab world, aside from what they show on TV, right? When we back in the 2000s. So that's why I wanted to get that formal education in Arabic. So that's kind of what my focus was. And during that time, I was able to study abroad in Jordan and in Ghana and different parts of the world, which really exposed me to new places and new things that I had never seen before. Like I'm the first person in my family to even leave the country. So there were a lot of firsts for me, in my undergrad education. But that entire time I wasn't thinking, oh, this is going to get me a job. Like I was never thinking, I never had that mindset of like, I'm getting this degree to get me a specific type of job. I was getting the degree to learn something new that I had never learned before. So that was my kind of thought process for why I chose linguistics, why I even went down the liberal arts path versus like, a more structured major path. And I'm still satisfied with that. Like, I don't think I would change my decision because my decision ultimately has led me to where I am today. So I think we all have our own paths and that's okay.
Wow. See, that's I love that. I love that, Lila. See, there's one thing where you choose to go to college, right? And you decide that, okay, well, I'm gonna go to college. I'm going to get one of these useless degrees, as I like to call them. I'm going to say useless degrees, right? Because and this is not a shot at anything that you've done, obviously, right? But I'm going to say from a return on investment perspective, they tend to fall on the lower side, right?
Oh, absolutely. And just to that point, after I graduated, even before I graduated, actually, just going to like career fairs where, a bunch of different employers would come, nobody wanted a linguistics major. Even in my graduating class, there were only like 3 or 4 of us in the whole senior class compared to, an abundance of, accounting majors, abundance of like so many other, business related majors. So I understand in terms of like the return on investment, how that can look. I still wouldn't change it though, but I definitely knew it then, even though I knew, yeah, just thinking back, I remember being at the career fairs and like nobody wanted to talk to me except for like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, you know, the nonprofits, things like that. But if I were to go to Deloitte or to, you know, a big four accounting firm, they weren't going to talk to me. They would just look at my major and like laugh.
Yeah, and
So
that's what I find interesting, Ella. That's what I find interesting, right? Because most people in your shoes that I know of that've gotten some of these degrees that are at that bottom level, right? They choose to let that be their ultimate like downfall, right? Where they are in a whole bunch of debt and they just can't figure it out. You have been able to like figure it out based on the transitions that you've had. Obviously, you realize after graduating that maybe this wasn't the right path, right? But you made a transition to finance, and then you made a transition to tech. Talk about what you did after graduating, because I want people to understand, and I want to know a little bit more too, because I think it's absolutely fascinating that your college degree gave you so much exposure to different parts of the world. When I hear this sort of stuff and people get like they take advantage of the other aspects of going to college to study abroad. You went to Jordan, right? You went to Ghana. That's pretty remarkable to be able to say that you've done that while you're in college and to gain that worldly experience, and also coming from a place that you would consider, like you mentioned yourself, you come from an unprivileged background. When you go to places like Jordan or you go to a place like Ghana, you really do potentially see what poor people are living like. And it's a lot different than what the poor in the United States is. Were you able
sure.
to determine that as well too? And how did that like help you with your drive to say, you know what, like I'm not down and out with this degree. There's so many other ways that I can get it. Like how talk about that piece of it. When you figured out that the world is different and we do have a lot of luxuries in the United States. And did that motivate you to make a job transition or a career transition and so forth? Talk about that.
So that's a good question. Let me think about that. I think I was still on the path towards international development, I think, when I was in college. And that's why I actually chose Jordan and Ghana compared to, what most people want to go to, which is like somewhere in Europe. Because I felt like I would get more of a cultural experience. I would get I would understand and recognize my privilege a little bit more, especially when I was in Ghana. Because I remember during that trip or during that semester, we went to this place called Inzulezu, which is like it's called a village on stilts. And it's basically like this village that is right directly above water in this little area in Ghana. And it's, impoverished like no other. And I had never seen anything like it. We had to actually take like canoes to get there in the first place. So it's very isolated, very, very small village. And I remember at that point, like my privilege was absolutely checked. And this is coming from someone who in the US context doesn't feel like they have a ton of privilege, or at least back then I didn't. So I don't know if it made me want to pivot then at that moment, but it definitely gave me a broader perspective of what other people are dealing with in the world. And so, and it also gave me an appreciation for my life in the US and also the education that I was receiving, because the university that I had attended in Ghana, it was just a very different type of curriculum, very different type of education system compared to what I was used to growing up. So it gave me more appreciation for the education that I did or that I was receiving, even though the ROI or the degree itself wasn't necessarily monetarily that valuable.
Got it. I love that. So tell me this. You graduate, right? You graduate. What was your first job after graduating, or were you able to find a job?
So when I graduated, I actually was accepted into the Peace Corps. Okay. And I departed for Morocco. So before I actually left for Morocco, I participated in a fellowship in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is in Eastern Europe. And that was a fellowship to learn about World War II or Bosnia post World War II, because I had never learned about the country before. Once again, I was still kind of in that international mindset, nonprofit space. So I was really focused on just learning about cultures, learning about, different things from all over the world. And so Bosnia was the first one. And then Morocco was soon after. I had to come back early from the Peace Corps, though, from Morocco, just for family reasons. So once I got back home, all my plans were kind of shot because if you don't know about Peace Corps, it's a 2-year commitment. And so when I had to come back to the US, I was just like, okay, well, what do I do with my life now? I like I had plans to be, abroad for several years, and now I'm back in the US. What do I do? So then I started researching like anything I could find, like what is in demand, who's hiring, like who's hiring linguistic majors. And so when I got back, it took me about 9 months to actually find a full-time position after that. Um, During that time, I was working part-time at a local boys and girls club, but I mean, it's nonprofit. I'm not making that much, right? And so that whole time I was just kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, what seems to be interesting based on the interviews I'm going on, based on these companies that I've been applying for. I mean, I'm sure people in the chat and people who are watching, they know hundreds of applications. Maybe a handful might actually reach back out to you, and of that handful, you might get a couple interviews, right? So that was kind of the process that I went under, and I just kind of went to whatever company would accept me. And there was only one that actually offered me a position, and that was the job. That was the job in finance. So
Okay.
I was in LA at that time, and that's when I moved to DC. So I ended up working for a company called Bernstein Private Wealth Management, which is a global asset company essentially, and they have different offices in different parts of the US. But I told them I'm willing to relocate, take me anywhere, just give me the job, please.
So tell me this. Hold on. So how did
Okay.
you? So you're working at the Boys and Girls Club, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I need to find any job, whatever job it is.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, if it comes up, because I'm doing thousands of resumes, thousands of applications, nothing seems to be coming up. All of a sudden, you're applying to this place. Like, what did you apply for? Did you apply for a finance position? Did you know you had that skill set? Like, how did you end up in a financial and wealth management for a company all the way in DC?
So I was on Indeed, I was on LinkedIn, I was on all the, typical websites that you would go to and apply for positions. And this was more of like a operations sales based role. It was an associate. So the role itself was assisting financial advisors in helping them build their business, because that's essentially what you do in private wealth management. Financial advisors go out, they seek their clients, they try to build their portfolio, bring in more money, more assets under management. And as an associate, we help to manage all of that stuff, and we're more of the client-facing position. So that was the role itself. Within the role, there is some analytical, Monte Carlo simulation type stuff that we did that I just was not familiar with at that time. I had no background in training. As I mentioned before I even was hired, I didn't know what a stock and a bond was. Like, I knew nothing about the financial industry, like nothing. But because I interviewed well, and because they saw the drive and the willingness of me to learn more, I think that's really what they wanted. They saw that hunger, and this role was meant. It was an entry level role, so they weren't expecting me to have 2 to 3 years of experience already. They didn't. Most people come straight out of college, so because of that, I think they were willing to take a chance on me, and I was definitely willing to take that job. So I was not complaining at all. And even it's funny because like the salary that I first got, that first role was higher than any other company back in Los Angeles and California. And it was higher than I was ever even expecting for my first position. And that wasn't even like a tech role. It wasn't really like a super analytical role. It was more of like a salesy operations role, really. So I was kind of shocked. For me, like, I thought I was going to get like 40,000 and 50,000. I would have been fine with that, but it was definitely more than that as a first position, especially for someone who didn't have any experience in finance whatsoever. So I was definitely appreciative and grateful. I think my starting salary was like 60 something. I forget the exact number, but 60 something in that range.
Holy wow. So you graduated, you spent the whole 4 years of your life going to school in liberal arts and linguistics and so forth, and studying Arabic, traveled the world. And the roles that you weren't able to get a job. But ultimately, what ended up happening is, you did some side jobs, boys and girls clubs and so forth, but you start applying to, different industries. And the financial industry, they pay people damn well, even people coming out of college, right? And they
Yeah.
probably almost saw you like, okay, well, she has experience because of her background. You can obviously tell she's a people person based on amount of travel she's done and how she enjoys to help people. And they said, you know what, we're going to treat her like an entry level employee coming into the financial industry. And they paid you a shitload. They actually paid you more than a lot of engineers are paid. They're out of college a lot of the time. At least,
Really? Oh,
you know,
wow.
I was a
Yeah.
software engineer. Well, I'm older than you, well, obviously, but when I came out of college as a software engineer, I was making $48,000. If you're making $60,000 coming out of college, even still to this day, as a developer, that still is a good salary. I'm like, that's a
Wow.
good salary. So, um, financial markets, the financial industry, right? They do pay people pretty well. But talk about this, right? You got the job.
Hmm.
You said something that I want you to hit on. They saw your drive. They saw your how well you were able to interview. Like,
Hmm.
where does that stuff come from? Those are soft skills that are, I talk a lot about on this channel as well too. Like, talk about how you were able to kill that interview, but also, what how you were able to demonstrate your drive. Talk about that piece of it as
Sure,
well too.
absolutely. So because I knew that I didn't have any, direct financial experience, I didn't even take a math class in college. So my quantitative skills weren't strong.
Mm.
I decided to start, I just went on, I think it's called Udemy or Udemy. I don't know how it's
Yeah.
pronounced, but I just went on like those websites and I started taking like Excel courses and just like basic, just fundamental courses that you should know in terms of like software and um, just platforms that you have on your computer that I just never use because I didn't need to use it up until that point. Um, and I would kind of explain the process of, these are the steps that I'm taking to learn, even though I don't have a formal background in these concepts. They mentioned to me that training was a big portion of the job anyways, and that they were really looking for people that had the soft skills. So where the soft skills come into play is, I think, that's a good question. And that's hard to define, to be honest. I think you either kind of, I don't want to say you have it or you don't, but I I just like to talk to people. I like to ask questions. I have a level of intellectual curiosity that maybe some people might not have. Um, and that translates well when it comes to speaking to clients and when it comes to speaking to people in general. And
Mm.
so for me, that was kind of really what helped, was that they saw that I was interested even though I didn't have the background, and they were willing to take that chance because of it. Um, sure, there probably were people that were more qualified than myself. There were people that probably did study finance and did study those, actual things in college, but they probably didn't have the soft skills. They probably just were probably very awkward, or they, didn't really know how to like talk to people and make people feel comfortable and welcomed and that sort of thing, right? Which is what I kind of excelled in more than I did on the quantitative side.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to mention for sure is quantitative skills. You can teach anybody that stuff.
Mm.
It's clear, clear as day. Like you can teach anybody quantitative skills, but soft skills is something that really comes from within. Um, and so being able to make people feel comfortable around you is a really big portion or a big part of client facing positions. Not only that, but allowing them to uh, allowing them to build trust in you is also
Mm.
equally as important, if not more valuable. So
Mm.
if you can show that you can demonstrate the trust building and the comfortability and all of that stuff, and just also just being professional and just the basics, I think that goes a long way. Sure that the technical skills are important as well, but for especially for sales and for operations, if you can just demonstrate that people want to be around you, and want to talk to you and want to engage with you, I think that's also just as valuable as the technical aspect of any sort of role.
I would 100% agree. I would even say this, Ella, right? I think it's even more valuable, right? Because
Mm,
here's another piece of it too that I'm a jump to. One of
okay.
the things you mentioned was your role at this financial company was client facing. That's another reason that you were paid an extreme amount of money on the front end as well too. Because if
Really?
you're,
I didn't think
yes,
about that.
absolutely. If you think about it, right? If you think about the people who get paid the most in corporations, anytime you're closer to the customer, you're going to end up getting paid more. Anytime you have a direct, response for bringing in revenue
Hmm.
or for helping to generate revenue, you're going to get paid a lot more money. So think about this. I'm in sales right now, right? And the reason why salespeople get paid so much is because they're responsible for really getting customers to make a transaction with the company that you're with. They're the person who's a representation of the actual company themselves. So most people, if you want to do really well in your career and make a good amount of salary, you're not going to be a back end person. You're going to be a person that has to have soft skills. You have to be a person that's really close to the customer in order for you to get a high level salary, like, a person in sales get paid, or, executives and so forth. Executives, they talk to, customers all the time, customers at the executive level and so forth. But the majority of them are client facing. And if you're in a manager role, traditionally as well too, you are more than likely going to be somewhat client facing. And if you're not, you're probably not going to be getting paid as much as somebody who is a manager who is more in a client facing, such as in professional services, delivering projects or project management, or things on the sales side as well too, or even product management. That's another piece of it, right? Where if you're close to the customer in product management, you're going to be getting paid a good amount of money as well too, from a salary perspective. But let me do this real quick, Ella. I want to hit these super chats, and I'm going to let you continue to cook. You're over here cooking, okay? Captivated my. I appreciate the $9.99 super chat. Greetings to you and your guest, brother. Thank you for these talks with people in the field. Absolutely. Blind guy, his wife, their life, $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Corey and Laquita. Shout out to the useful degrees. They are useful degrees. There are a lot of useful degrees out there. Brandy is in the house as well too. Brandy, I appreciate the $9.99 super chat. Thank you. Tell Brother John I said what's happening. I hope he's doing wonderful, and little Jonathan is doing well as well too. Brandy says, Woman Empowerment 2022 is my year for IT. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that too, Brandy. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Absolutely. So, okay. So you got to say this now, Ella. So you're in this financial role. Okay. And tell me, is it everything that you want it to be? Are you struggling with it? Obviously, your soft skills is good. You're learning all this quantitative stuff. Take me along that journey, and then we're going to get to that tech piece of you finding your way there, because you made another transition, right? You made the transition into the finance world, which, believe me, I'm even scared of the finance world. I'm on the sales side. I love the sales side, but the finance, the numbers, I would love to be excellent in the numbers piece of it. Maybe that's another area that maybe I will do one day in my life, but I just think that is like a completely different skill set that I'm not comfortable with at this point in time. But you did it, okay? So talk about that journey and then how you got into tech. Go ahead and do that.
Gotcha. So this was my first real job, like my first legit corporate job, full time, after I graduated. At this point, it had been maybe a year after I'd graduated from college, and it was difficult. Like it was both difficult on the soft skill side and on the hard side, because soft skills, I'm a millennial and we don't like to pick up the phone. And that was half the job, was we had to pick up the phone and talk to clients. And that was really difficult for me because I wasn't used to it at that point. But we had to pick up the phone, talk to clients about our products, our what we offered, as well as, the financial trends that are going on in the world at that time. This was maybe 2018 that this was all going on. And so I was very anxious a lot when I went into work, because I just wasn't used to it, because it was my first corporate job. I didn't want to say the wrong things. I was scared of making mistakes. So that kind of messed me up a little bit on the soft side. On the hard quantitative side, there was a lot that I had to catch up on, because I was probably one of the only people in the new class of hires that didn't come from a finance background. I was probably one of the only ones. And so I had a lot more to catch up on and to study and to learn. And I'm not going to lie, it was really difficult. A lot of this stuff I had never heard of before. And I just kind of felt sometimes I had a lot of imposter syndrome too. I think that was the biggest thing. That was my biggest area of just, it was tough. It was really tough. A lot of times I felt like I didn't deserve to be there, because you heard my background. It did anything from my education to my interest. No. Didn't mention any indication of finance. No, exactly.
Not at all. Not at all.
So for me, I felt like, okay, maybe somebody else who was more qualified should have been there. And that kind of was still in my in my head the entire time that I was with that company from the beginning to the end. And I think that was kind of what messed me up in terms of just my progress, or stunted my progress, that is, because I just kept putting myself down so much, and like felt like I was never good enough for the job that I was in. So I think the company was great. The people were great. I worked right across the street from the White House. So I had no complaints about like the company or the office or anything. It was just, I think my own internal mind kind of got in the way of progress in that role. And I'm sure probably not the only one who's gone through that imposter syndrome phase, but it definitely was a struggle for sure. Both on the quantitative side and on the soft skill side. Even though I knew I had and possessed the soft skills, like I'm comfortable talking to people, that's no problem. But I just kept I kept getting in my own head about saying the wrong things, and not feeling good enough, and not feeling like I deserved to be there for the like 9 months that I was there at that company. That I just, it was a positive thing that when I did leave, even though I did have a positive experience overall in terms of like the people that I worked with in my team. So does that answer your question as far? Okay.
It does, Ella. But what I would say is this too. You know, I want to talk a little bit more about that job, because it's almost sounds like you were in a sales role in some aspects of it. You're calling customers, and are you cold calling customers at this point in time? Are you
so
you're pitching ideas, pitching products and stuff like that?
So our company, thank goodness, we didn't, that wasn't our model. We primarily used referrals to get our business. But we did have to pick up the phone. We did have to, make transactions, because these are, accredited investors, qualified purchasers, basically people who, are either making at least $200,000 or have at least $1 million or $5 million of assets or liquid assets within themselves. So these are like high net worth individuals. And for me, this, formerly homeless person who, just graduated from college with this liberal arts degree, like, I'm intimidated by all these people. So I think it was a level of intimidation that I just didn't want to say the wrong things, because clients, I mean, you deal with people, you know how people can be, especially clients, especially high net worth clients at that. And I was scared. I think that's like, to be honest, I was just really scared that entire time. And so I tried to avoid the phone calling. I didn't mind being face to face with clients. I didn't mind, doing the analyses as far as their like portfolios and what their financial portfolios might look like in the next 5, 10, 20, et cetera years. But it was definitely intimidating, I will say. And I think that's what held me back the most.
Wow. I say this though, kudos to you for even, a lot of people are just on the fence about getting into IT in general, right? They think that, okay, well, I don't have the skills because I don't have to come from a background like that. You're like, I don't give a damn, right? I just need to make a way for myself, and whatever it is, I'm just going to figure it out. You applied to this position, you accepted it, you dealt with it for a good 9 months or so. I'm sure there was a whole bunch of stuff that you learned from that experience, right?
Oh, obviously, for sure.
You've learned, how to get over imposter syndrome, how to, communicate with people over the phone, or how to get out of your own head, whatever it is that you probably learn the financial models and stuff like that. The fact of the matter is, you took a step in the right direction to learn, and you just said, you know what, I'm just going to figure this piece of it out. I want people who are on the fence of going into IT, guys, just don't think that you have to have it figured out now. You apply. If you get accepted, if you get a job position, and it's in the salary that you want it to be around, or even below the salary, if you want to get your foot in the door, just do it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to get there. You're going to leverage your soft skills, or your ability to relate with other people, and they can help you get over your hurdle that you may be facing, or the lack of skills, the hard skills that you may have or you may not have at that point in time. Just completely apply. Don't sit here and say, oh, okay, the situation has to be perfect, because Ella wouldn't even, gone that way if she would have thought that the situation had to be perfect, because she didn't even come from a background like that at all. And she went into a completely different industry. So I wanted to make sure I said that to give people encouragement that things don't have to be perfect, and they can be in a completely different background. You went from, linguistics all the way to the financial industry and so forth. So now talk about what happened after you left that job.
Sure. So after I left Bernstein, I I was thinking, okay, I'm in DC. What are the big industries in DC? Usually it's government, finance, nonprofits or national nonprofits that is, and then consulting. Consulting is a really big industry in the DMV area. And the big four companies, the big four management consulting firms are out there. But there was this one company that it had always been in the back of my head since I was in college. And I was like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. Let me just apply to some roles, see, you know, if anybody bites and actually gets back to me. None of the roles were specifically like tech roles, but it would the company itself is an IT management consulting firm. So a lot of our projects are tech based or IT based, really, federal government contracting type of projects. And I was like, you know what, let me just give it a shot. And because I knew I wanted to pivot to something different, finance just because it wasn't my thing, or it wasn't something that I was passionate about. And so I decided to apply for this company called Booz Allen Hamilton, and they immediately got back to me. And the reason they got back to me immediately was because of my experience with the finance company. They actually liked the fact that I was in that company doing the type of work that I did, because the role that I applied to for Booz Allen Hamilton was a client-facing role as well, and they needed somebody that some of the stuff that I did in the finance company was process improvements, because I was really interested in like just fixing some of the nuances of what we did as a team, or making things more efficient. Not to say that things were like super inefficient, but there were just some things that we could have improved a little bit just to make our time more useful. And that's what I did. And I helped to improve that team's efficiency, tremendously. Even though I wasn't the best at the quantitative aspect, I was really good at the process improvement aspect. And that small piece was what interested Booz Allen Hamilton, because that's a lot of what I did in that first role when I joined the company. So even though I wasn't in a technical or tech role, I was more in like a junior project manager type of role, as a travel analyst. And that really was, going back to what you said before, that's what got my foot in the door into the industry. So even though my first corporate job wasn't tech, it helped me pivot into an IT management consulting company, which is in tech essentially, and into a role that then brought me to where I am today. So I think like nothing is ever super linear, but whatever role you have now, try to use it to your advantage so that you can leverage that into your next role, because whatever skills you're building now is going to be relevant for the next thing. And that's kind of what I realized when I joined this company.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So you have to tell me this, like what roles did you apply for, and what was the first role? It sounds like it was a junior project manager role, right?
Yeah, so the official title was a travel analyst, but I really operated as a junior project manager. So essentially, we looked at processes. So yeah, someone said that Booz Allen is a government contracting company. That's absolutely true. Also, IT management company. It's same. But I, I'm sorry. What was your question again?
No. So tell me this. So talk a little bit more about the travel analyst job, as
Yeah.
doing some project management work.
So a lot of what I did was just kind of, at first I kind of just, observed what the culture was like, because I didn't even know what government contracting was. To be honest, before when I joined, once again, like before, I didn't know what I didn't know what a stock and a bond was. Here, I didn't really know what government contracting was, because I had never really heard of it before. And I was working with a civilian related agency, and the project was the whole project was we were trying to implement a new electronic health records modernization system within this agency, because we're trying to get them in the 21st century. Because
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because we know the government can be stuck in the past, and we're trying to move to the present. You know how it goes. And my role specifically was in the project management related element of that entire contract. And my team we helped to process travel, or we helped like process travel for all of the government contractors, government staff and contractor staff. But my specific piece, I did a little bit of the finance portion of it. Like I did reconciliation, I did some of that stuff, even though that wasn't like my role. I wasn't in the finance team, but I still did some finance related work. But my specific role was related to process improvements and improving the way the travel process operated, because it was very convoluted and just all over the place. So I wanted the clients to have a more streamlined approach to their travel methods, because it just was all over the place. And for as large as a contract as it was a huge project, or it still is a huge project. It just was super inefficient. And so that's kind of why I was brought on. But in that process of learning about project management, I also was learning a little bit about Power BI. I took some Excel courses to kind of get some more analytical skills on the side. So just basics, nothing too fancy schmancy like tech, but it was something that was really, I was kind of, building like little by little the skill sets as a business analyst, so to speak, even though I wasn't technically a business analyst at that time. So I was learning some of like the visualization tools as well as some of the analytical tools, even though the role was just a travel analyst. So but I was trying to reach into other different teams and other different pockets to learn as much as I could at the same time, because like I said, it was my first position in that industry, or in this industry. So that's kind of.
So tell me this. So tell me this. And sorry, I jumped in right there. I want you to hit on this. So you are doing the travel analyst role, project management, stuff like that, right? Why? Mm-hmm. What made you really want to continue to skill up? You said you took some Excel classes. You started learning about Power BI. You started to reach into other organizations within the company to learn a little bit more. What made you want to do that? Was it curiosity? Was it the fact that you were just, eventually wanting to make more money? Was it the fact that you wanted to climb the ladder? What was it exactly?
So I was probably one of the youngest people on that contract. As far as like my management level, I was the only person at that level, like the entry level within the company. Everybody else was higher. Every other, there were like 500 people on this contract. Everyone else was higher than me. And even when they hired me, I shouldn't have been hired because I didn't have, the amount of years of experience required. But they took a chance on me once again. I got lucky, I think. But I think because I was one of the youngest people and I was always considered like the junior person, I felt like I had to prove myself. And by skilling up, that was one way of showing, hey, these are the skills I possess. These are the things that I can do. Let me show you. And then also I realized at a point I kind of plateaued in the skills, because if you're in a specific role that uses the same types of tools every day, you're going to get used to those tools. And so if I'm only using Excel, if I'm only using Power BI, if I'm only using these little small things every day, then I'm not really going to progress that much. I mean, maybe sure I can get some more advanced skills in Excel or in spreadsheets, but I'm not really gaining like enough technical skills to, move on to the next thing and to showcase the next team or to the next project or whatever that I'm, capable. So that's kind of why I wanted to start skilling up. But at that time, it was also during the pandemic. So 2020 happened, and then we all started working from home. And at that time, I just realized I need to pivot to something different. I'm getting kind of bored with what I'm doing. And as the junior person, I just need to kind of look to bigger and better things as far as the actual day-to-day work. And I was just really getting bored of working like in Excel, doing reconciliations every day. It was super time consuming. I want to do something different. So when I moved to Vegas, I also had to find a new job because the previous client, they wanted us to come physically in the office, and I couldn't do that if I was traveling across the country. And so in this current role, I am now a business analyst. So that was a travel analyst role. I don't know if you have any more questions about that specific role or if I answered all your questions.
Talk about that transition into business analyst role.
Okay.
Talk about that. I love that.
So as I was kind of looking for a new position within the company, I knew that I wanted to take the Excel skills and the little skills that I was gaining to the next level. in a different role on a different team, just doing different work. And I think that and there's this business analyst role that actually this role wasn't even advertised. I was applying to so many jobs within the company internally, and just I was getting interviews, but they also wanted me to be in the office, which was not in Vegas, so I couldn't do it. And one day I remember this. One day I could not sleep, and it was like 3, 4 in the morning, and I was still awake. I was just kind of like looking to see, just trying to network with people in the company for meet and greet introductions. And there was this one random person that I reached out to, or that I saw, and I liked her background. And I was like, let me just reach out to her. Let me just see if she has 15 minutes, if I can chat with her, kind of explain my situation, see if she knows anyone that is hiring or anything. And within like a few hours, she got back to me, and she helped set up an interview for something that she was hiring for on her team at that time, which was the business analyst role that I'm in now. So she happened to also be hiring for the role that I'm in, while I was also looking for the exact type of role that I wanted. And so once again, I got lucky. I really got lucky.
So Ellie, you got it.
The timing was right.
There's so much about this, right? And I gotta say it, right, because this is something that we talk a lot about as well too on this channel, is that the networking piece of it, and using things like LinkedIn, because that is how you get jobs, right? You say you're lucky, and you're very humble, but the majority of this stuff is happening because you're putting in the time and you're putting in the effort as well too, Ella. And at the end of the day, that stuff pays off for people who actually put in the time and the effort, and also does a really good job at networking with people as well too. And like that's what I'm hearing constantly over and over within this situation. Not only that, somebody who's willing to just say, you know what, an opportunity opens up, I'm going to go through that door, right? And I'm not going to overthink it, right? That's another piece of it that I'm hearing along this story, is you're like, all right, well, whatever the opportunity is, I'm going to take it. I'm going to constantly upskill. I'm going to constantly stay hungry. Whenever I'm getting to a point where there's a little bit of stagnation, I need to do more. 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 And
Right.
That's how you consistently get better in your career. That's how other opportunities consistently open up for you as well too. And I just wanted to make sure I explain that, because you may say it's lucky, and I don't want people to think that it is lucky, because it's really not. It's your effort that you're putting into it. And yes, it always seems like it's lucky when things like that happen to really good people. But at the end of the day, it's what you're putting in, you're getting out. And when you show yourself in a good light to people and you have really good results, it always works out for you. So I just wanted to make sure I said that too as well, Ella, because I don't see it as luck directly. I see it as you are hardworking. You're a very smart person. You are very cultured as well too. You know the game, you know soft skills, and you know how to connect with people. And that's like a perfect ingredient, or the perfect ingredients, in order for you to get, the outcomes that you want out of life. So continue on hitting that. Continue on hitting other parts of it as well too.
Thank you. And another thing that I kind of got bored with the previous job was that the clients, they weren't willing to add new software and add more efficient programs that we could have used to make a lot of our processes more, just a lot better. And so that was another reason why I wanted to leave, and another reason why I like this team that I'm currently on, because we can use a lot of the actual analytical tools that a business analyst should be using, right? So someone mentioned, I think, SQL in there. So in this current role, I'm a business analyst, and I work in the realm of operations. So I help to support the C-suite executives within the global defense group at Booz Allen Hamilton, and this role definitely, has kicked me in the butt, just because it's so different from the previous role. It's a lot more analytical. It's a lot more statistic heavy. And so I didn't have that formal background in statistics. And so this year I made it a goal of mine to really hone in on the education piece, and just training myself on a lot of tools that are necessary to perform, a good presentation, a good story with the data, right? So earlier this year, I participated in a boot camp related to Python, SQL, and Tableau. It was primarily focused on analytics and visualizations. And even though the job doesn't utilize every aspect of, Tableau or SQL or something, we can still utilize it in the role. And that experience has been so invaluable because, I didn't know much about SQL before this year, to be honest. And Tableau, I feel like everybody should be using Tableau. It makes it so much easier. Instead of using pivot tables in Excel, it's just a lot more efficient and streamlined once again in terms of like indicating and showcasing data in a digestible way. And so these platforms were really helpful to me as a business analyst in my current role, and in just making my decks, my presentations a lot more vibrant, a lot more clear compared to an Excel, an Excel or just a basic PowerPoint presentation. So I love that aspect of it. I also just recently, literally last week, completed a data analytics certificate through eCornell. And that piece of the analytics puzzle really honed in on the statistics piece. It focused a lot on prescriptive analytics and predictive modeling, things like that. It used a lot of Excel models, but it was really helpful for me as someone who has never taken a statistics class in her life, and who just deliberately did not take a statistics class in her life. So it definitely was difficult, especially being that it was a Cornell program. But I definitely appreciated it because it kind of blended the two between the visualizations of that boot camp of like Python and SQL and Tableau and how those are connected, but also on the actual prescriptive modeling of predicting things that I wasn't able to predict in earlier this year. So now that I have that complementary piece of analytics tools, I don't need to know every single program. I don't need to know R. I don't need to know everything for this specific role, thank goodness. But I definitely have appreciated the amount of knowledge that I've gained in just this year alone. Because if you would have asked me a few years ago if I could do what I did now, I definitely would have been very intimidated, like I was in that previous finance role. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And if it wasn't for this role and that training, I would not have actually came across your channel, because in this process, I kept thinking, I want to do more. I love what I do. Statistics is cool. Tableau, all of these different programs and softwares are cool, but I want to do something different. I want to do something more. And that's when I started looking into, master's programs in IT, because I know I want to pivot more directly into tech. Like, this is a technical role, yes, but I wouldn't consider it tech specifically because of what I actually do. And so I started looking into like universities and programs, and then I came across this school called Western Governors University. And I was like, what's this school? I never heard of it before, but I'll take a look. So of course, what do? I go to YouTube University, in the search bar, WGU, see what shows up. And then that's how actually I came across your channel, because you had, did the video on the IT management program. And I watched a bunch of videos, read a bunch of, different articles, of course, because as you would do, when you are searching for universities. And I was like, what, this IT management thing, I think I'm going to go for it, because it's a checkbox, but also I'm going to learn so much that I didn't learn in my boot camps related to IT specifically, and also like the management business element of IT as well. So I thought that was a really good, blend of courses. And so now I'm going into this, and I'm also trying to pivot once again, but like more directly into tech. So I'm in IT management or government contracting. I'm more on an internal role versus a client-facing role now, but I definitely want to maybe go back to a client-facing position, because there is something different about it. There is something different about being more front and center than like kind of behind the scenes, I think. And it's a lot more fast-paced. It's a lot more in your face, and the day just goes so much faster. And I feel like I get a lot more out of that than I do just by sitting behind a screen and like analyzing data all day. So it's valuable, but once again, I don't want to plateau. So since I'm still going up, that mountain of just knowledge, I don't want to like stop. So I want to keep going, but doing something different at the same time. So I'm still going to use those business analyst skills that I've developed this year, but just using it in something different.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I don't even
Well,
remember what your
tell me
question
this.
was, but
No. You're riding. You're rocking out. So tell me this. Tell me this. What is obviously the next thing, right? I've heard the journey. The journey is a remarkable one from liberal arts. You're talking about Arabic. You're talking about African American studies. You're talking about now getting into professional world. You're talking about now working in the finance industry. Completely different. Learning to upskill with that. Learning a little bit about sales, client facing roles, then saying, okay, well, this is not where I really want to take my career. Saying, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to go into IT. I'm going to work for one of the largest, IT management, government management companies that exist out there. Booz Allen, you got your foot in the door there, doing the project management work as a, travel. I forgot what actual name of it, but
travel
you kind of
analyst.
mix a travel analyst, right? Then from there, you're like, okay, well, you know what? I want to do more. Let me look for other roles within the same company to see how I can expand and continue to grow. Then you went to become a business analyst and you've learned a whole bunch within this last year. You did some certifications. You did, tons of certifications, eCornell, as well as the Tableau and getting more equipped in Excel, all this extra training. Now you're saying, okay, well, you know what? Now I want to go and get a master's because I want to even be more well-rounded. Your mindset is, I just can't stop. Life is
Yeah.
about growth. Life is about learning. Life is about, putting yourself in different positions to learn and grow. And that's what I'm seeing. And people who have that sort of mindset, they typically win. So you got to tell me something like this, right? So I'm not going to ask you specific numbers because I have no idea. But was there a salary jump from the finance company to going into the tech field with Booz Allen? Was there a salary jump at all?
There wasn't, for me, there wasn't a huge jump. It definitely was higher than what I was making before, for sure. So I'm not complaining at all. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like a, like going from 60 to 100K in like a month kind of thing. But with the transition that I'm trying to make now from this company to another type of platform, I think there would be a bigger jump, to be honest.
So you're about to be getting the bag even more now.
Oh yeah, and I actually saw one of your videos about, well, I guess what we're going to talk about, which is Salesforce, recently. So I know for a fact there's going to be a significant jump.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell people what exactly it is that you really want to do after you get your master's, or even before you get your master's. Tell people what is it that you're looking to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm also working towards my first Salesforce certification. Salesforce is a customer relationship management type of platform. Like a lot of enterprise or a lot of companies use Salesforce to kind of centralize a lot of their sales and customer relationships. And so it just allows different like groups within a company to utilize, or manage their leads, their customers, things like that. And it's just it's a really great tool, and it's a cloud-based tool. It's a software as a service. And so for me, in my finance company, we actually use Salesforce. So I used to be an end user of the platform. And so going from an end user to an administrator is sort of the next step that I want to be, because in terms of the culture of Salesforce, it's amazing. The people are so helpful. They're so willing to, assist you in any, questions you might have related to the platform. So I just think in general, the culture is great, but also learning how to manage the back end processes of Salesforce, which is a tech company and a tech-based platform, cloud-based platform. It's super gamified. So it makes the learning process very a lot more fun than just kind of reading a bunch of text. So I've been enjoying the process so far, and just kind of picking up where I left off a few years ago from being an end user to now. It's just been really interesting to see how far it's come in the past few years, how much Salesforce continues to, kind of reinvent itself, and new features that come out every once in a while. I just think it's amazing. And so Salesforce is kind of the next route, or in general, more broadly, low code, no code platforms. I'm not the biggest programmer. I don't like to code personally. So finding other ways to be in tech without being a coder or being a programmer is kind of what I wanted to do. So business analyst was kind of like that first kind of, getting my feet wet into technical type of roles, but now pivoting more so towards Salesforce administration and hopefully eventually being a Salesforce consultant. That's kind of really what I want to do.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's kind
That's
of what I want to
absolutely
pivot to
wonderful.
next. So that's my goal.
That's absolutely wonderful, and I love that because you just highlighted a whole bunch of Salesforce wins. You don't even work for the company yet, right? and you know a whole bunch of it. You're like speaking it into existence, right? You're like, all right, this is where I'm going to go. What I love about a lot of this too, Ella, and what you just said is that you have a plan, right? A lot of people just don't even know what that plan is. Your mind is already on, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, right? I have to learn a little bit more about Salesforce. I have to start taking that path to being part of or becoming a Salesforce administrator or whatever it is that you want to become. You already know that. So ultimately, the steps that you're going to be taking is going to help you get there, whether it's going to WGU or whether it's taking a certification. I love the fact that you're a person who knows your vision, right? And you already know the path to get there, or you know how to set a vision, a clear vision at that. And you're taking the steps and taking multiple paths in order for you to get to that vision, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So a lot of people struggle with just understanding what it is that they want to do.
Yeah.
How is it that you're able to just figure out what it is that you want to do? Like I'm able to do it. And I say this all the time, like I already know what I want to do. And I go down that path. And for me, it's always been driven by money. I don't know what's driven you, right? But what is it that gives you that clarity to see exactly what you want to do, and then you take that step? Because what I'm understanding, there's not a lot of people who really has that clear of a vision, a goal like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has come from experience because I'm the kind of person that doesn't really know what I want to do until I do it. And so I have to try something before I even know if I like it. I can't just look at something and be like, maybe. I have to actually try it. So that's why I did the finance thing, or the finance role, because I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. Turned out I didn't love it. I mean, I appreciated it, but I didn't love it, but it was, it taught me a lot. So I think just learning how to do things, learning by doing, that's kind of what helps me figure out what I want to do next. Because if I hadn't become a business analyst, I wouldn't have done the boot camp. If I didn't do the boot camp, I probably wouldn't have done the data analytics program. If I didn't do the data analytics program, I probably wouldn't have, came across WGU. I probably wouldn't have really been considering tech. I probably wouldn't have even thought about Salesforce or low-code, no-code platforms. So I think a lot of it's kind of, I try one thing, see how it goes, do more research, see kind of what's related to it, and then go from there. Because, ultimately, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I know Salesforce is something that I want to try, right? Am I going to love it? Who knows until I, actually do it. But it's all about me just trying it. If I can try, if I have the opportunity to showcase my ability or to try it in a a job platform, or even if it's, just like me practicing on my own, then cool. If I don't like it, then I don't like it, but at least I have that skill set. If I do like it, great, I can continue forward and try something different. So maybe after Salesforce, there might be something else after that, right? Maybe in 2 years, we might have another conversation and I might be in something completely different, right?
I love that. I absolutely love it. I love that because that's seriously how I operate. It's I have an ultimate goal to be XYZ, but along the journey, you take multiple routes, right? There may be a journey that leads me down to sales. And I'm like, okay, well, I've done sales. Now it's time for me to do something else. And then I do that. And I say, okay, well, I want to take a different path. It's one thing I want people to understand is that they don't have to have it all figured out. I think the biggest thing is taking the step, right? Don't let fear stop you from taking the step, because you're going to be able to figure it out. You're going to be able to learn, and it's going to be part of your overall destination of where you ultimately are going to end up. And if you end up someplace that you don't like, you can switch. And it's the world is not ending, right? You learn skills. You can do it for a certain amount of time and do a pivot like Ella has done multiple times, right? And I think your story is absolutely remarkable. What do what do you say to people who are on the fence about getting into tech now that you've gotten a taste from it or a taste in it? Coming from a liberal arts background and so forth. What do you tell people? What do you want to leave people with that about getting into tech? Talk about that piece of it.
That's a good question. Um, I guess my first question would be what's holding you back? Because I mean, everybody has their own reason for why they, don't want to enter. Maybe they don't have enough experience. Maybe they don't have the, enough certs, depending on what avenue of tech, right? If they're trying to go into cybersecurity or IT or whatever the case may be, they just they may not have like the actual foundational knowledge or the entry level knowledge to kind of check that box to get that first job. I would just say, even if you're not working in a tech role, I think getting your foot in the door is what's most important, because you don't know what you're capable of until you actually start. And so for me, even though, like I said, my first role within this company wasn't necessarily a tech role, I wasn't, programming and things like that immediately. I observed, I networked with a lot of people. I asked a lot of questions just to kind of see what I could be interested in, because I had no idea. Like tech, for example, is this huge umbrella. There's so many things under the hood. And so you don't realize like how much is you could be doing. Like it's yes, you can be a business analyst. Yes, you can be an IT project manager or something in cybersecurity or something else, right? There's so many different platforms and tools and things out there that you just have to ask questions. You have to reach out to people. Some people aren't going to reach back out to you or respond to your questions. Cool. I will if you reach out to me. But I think it's really getting the foot in the door, because if you don't get your foot in the door, well, then where are you going to go? How are you going to start? And for me, even if it's not even if your first role is, like you said, you were your first job was like help desk or something, right?
Yep.
Right. So even if it's something like that, just having that foot in the door at the company you want to be at or in the industry you want to be in, that can at least help you get to the next thing, right? Because that finance role helped me get into this company in the first place. I didn't have a referral. I didn't know anyone that worked at this company beforehand, but they saw my resume. They saw the specific type of experience that I had that was directly related to the role that I was applying for. And they said, oh, okay, this person seems like she might be a good fit. Let's interview her. I happen to interview pretty well, so that helped me. But you have to, I think, get your foot in the door, but also realize, okay, what's holding you back? That's really kind of preventing you from wanting to enter. Is it intimidation? Is it you don't feel like you're good enough, like me in the beginning, right? Imposter syndrome, whatever. Just try it. You never know. Because I didn't know. I never, ever, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, would I even want to be in tech? I would say no. Get that far away from me. I don't want to learn Python. Like I'm good. But now, like, I love it. And I think, especially, with the compensation and, lab element, can't complain.
Talk about it real fast. Talk about that piece there too, because I'm throwing tech salaries out there to make people like see how life-changing it is. And I found that out personally, by being in this industry for a good 16 years. But I didn't even realize how much money you can make in tech until I got into sales, right? And it's a lot of money, right? And just talk about the salary pieces of it that you're experiencing. And by the way, you do have time, correct? Or my
I have time.
Okay, good. Talk about that piece of it that you've seen with just your little bit of years of being in tech so far, and what you've heard or experienced and so forth. Talk about the salary elements of it.
So, I mean, you can make a lot of money. I mean, that's it is. That's what it is. I mean, if you've seen his videos, I watch plenty of those because I'm always curious of the different companies and things like that. I remember I commented on one of your videos, like, Business Insider needs to sponsor you because you are putting us on game. Because like, there's some companies that I'm considering, like, I might look at you guys in the future, because I see the numbers and I'm loving these numbers. But no, I think it's very lucrative. Like, even as an entry level person, depending on what that job is and who the company is, you have the potential to double, triple your salary. With cloud-based platforms, especially with a lot of in-demand skills and in-demand softwares and tools that not a lot of people are, utilizing, or not a lot of people know about or know how to use and administrate or administer, it's very lucrative. Salesforce, very lucrative. Even as an entry level like administrator, you can start there. I believe with Salesforce, for example, like entry level is like 60 to 80K minimum starting. So that, just imagine a couple years after that, you can be making six figures. So next year, for example, I'm doing my best to be on track for making six figures. That's my goal. I never thought in my life I would get to that point. I never thought, if you would ask me a decade ago when I was homeless and when my family was homeless, would we ever, be able to make it to this level or this far in life? Absolutely not. So I'm very grateful for the knowledge that I've gained over the year, and also just understanding more about the industry, and really industry is like how many different aspects of tech touches. Like there's so many companies that tech roles touch, whether it's cloud-based, whether it's, enterprise, whatever the case is, it doesn't really matter. And so it's in a nutshell, it's lucrative. It's lucrative. And if you don't start now, you're going to regret it later. I know, for example, like I put off Salesforce, and even this data analytics certificate I put off for a while, and I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough, if I want to do it. But now that I'm finished, I'm like, I could have finished this months ago. And so same thing with Salesforce. I could have started this months ago, but I was skeptical. Like I just didn't know. I don't know if I want to invest the time or the energy into like actually learning how to use the platform. But if you don't start, then you're never going to start. You're going to continue to like prolong that. And so I would just say start, even if it's something that you don't know if you're going to like, just start it, because that could turn into something that makes you a ton of money in like 6 months. And all you have to do is just learn how to use it, because you have an advanced skill that someone else doesn't. Because I guarantee you, there's still a lot of, I haven't seen the video yet of the useless degrees, but there's still, there are going to be people that are having these quote unquote useless degrees like I did, and they are going to continue to study, whatever majors you listed in that video. And they're also going to have the mindset that, yeah, because I studied this one thing, I can't pivot to something different. But even if you study, English or whatever the case is, you can still go into tech. There are plenty of very successful people who study creative writing and all these other things that some folks might not find as valuable, but I believe they are, just in other industries, maybe not in tech specifically. But I think that there are people who are going to, hold themselves down and like say that they can't, pivot to, tech or tech related roles. But I disagree. I'm someone that is pivoting. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And and even if it's not tech, it could be something, it can be a different industry that's still sort of quantitative or STEM based or whatever the case is. I think it's, having a degree is valuable no matter what. If you study something that you want to study, that's great. But if you find that after you don't get that ROI, that's okay. Like, that's okay. I think, oh yeah, I agree with you, Devon. Those writers are a godsend. I'm gonna tell you right now, my best friend, she studied English, sociology, or anthropology, and like Italian, and now goes to now she's in Harvard Law. She still like grades, or not grades, but corrects my essays, like for scholarships and things. So I'm not devaluing like any liberal arts or anything, because I was in that too. I will never do that. But she still grades my stuff, so like I highly value those. I'm just speaking on in terms of like what are stereotypically considered useless degrees. But so yeah, I think that if you're intimidated, feel free to talk to me. If you didn't, if you're not inspired yet, feel free to talk to me directly, because there's a place for everybody in the tech space. It's huge. And it's continuing to grow too, right? A lot of these different platforms, a lot of these different softwares, a lot of these different, certifications even, it's just, there's going to be a bigger and bigger demand for it as time progresses. And so if you wait, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice, I think, at the end of the day, as opposed to just starting. there's so many free tools, free resources out there for so many different things. I'm not familiar with cybersecurity as much, so like CISSP and all that stuff, I can't speak on. But even in the realm of like project management, people don't necessarily consider project management tech, but if you look at a lot of tech-based teams, a lot of it is they need a project manager, they need a scrum master, they need some sort of person that is, orienting and making sure things are tracking along. And so even if your role specifically is not, crunching numbers or whatever the case is, there's still so many different roles out there that you can do. And it's just about getting your foot in the door and just trying something that you haven't tried before.
Absolutely. So we got SLBC in here as well too. He's a project manager in tech, making a whole bunch of money, right? We have Brother Gabe, who's in cybersecurity. That's a piece of it that I love too, Ella, right? Like, I think it's important to share that, and I'm so grateful that you were able to come in here and tell this inspiring story, first of all. But I also just wanted to reiterate something as well too, right? This community is powerful. This community has people in all aspects of the tech world where if I can't give you the information or Ella can't give you the information, we got PBO. We got Brother Gabe. We got, Engineering Cannabis, who's, highly into AI and automation. We got Brother Noah out here who's getting it bagged and into video, and he's going to WGU as well too, right? We have so many people that are on this track. We got Miss Brandy, right, who's been doing engineering or been doing HR recruiting for a very, very long time, and she's part of the Patreon. And she, I'm going to connect you to, because she potentially is going to be looking into getting into tech, and one of the fields that she has an interest is into Scrum, into project management as well too, right? There's so many aspects and so many people that exist out here who's willing to help and share their stories to help you get into or find a way into tech, because as Brandy mentioned, it's lucrative, it could be challenging, but also at the same time, it's something that it's going to be around forever, and you can find your path anywhere. It affects everything. It's impacted. Well, let's put it like this. It's in every single industry. Every single industry has tech, and it's going to leverage tech, and it's going to continue to leverage tech, whether it's finance, whether it's, automotive, whether it's, supply chain. It could be healthcare and so forth. And that's something that you mentioned as well, EHR, with the project that you did as a travel analyst. There's so much touching of tech to where you can find a role for yourself somewhere along the line. So I just wanted to make sure that I say that as well too. And If people wanted to contact you, Ella, I don't know if you have a handle, you have a YouTube page, you have a Instagram or Facebook. If people wanted to reach out to you, how could they reach out to you?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Ella Tazuana Johnson, as it's spelled on the screen, or my Instagram at Ella Puts In Work. Don't judge me. I made that when I was in high school. I haven't changed the name, so it is what it is.
If you ain't lying, you ain't lying.
I made it when I was a senior in high school, so I haven't changed the name.
See, and you are still putting in that work. Look at that. Yeah. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Let me hit these super chats real fast. I make sure I didn't miss anything in here. Ashton, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. Said inspiring conversation. Thank you so much. Who else? HEB Sparkling Water says such a great journey. Thanks for sharing this with us. What questions do you guys have? If you guys have any questions for Ella, leave a question in the chat. I think this has been absolutely inspiring. You've already said what you would leave people with from the aspect of going into tech, and you talked about the tech salaries. You shared your LinkedIn. What else? Is there anything else you want to leave people with, Ella?
Absolutely,
this has
sure.
Been absolutely amazing.
I think the biggest thing for me is that if you enter tech, you're constantly learning. You mentioned that tech is in pretty much every company, right? Every company uses some aspect of tech, enterprise software, cybersecurity, whatever. But being someone who is on the back end of those processes, you're constantly learning. You're learning tools. You're learning how to interact with people who don't know how to use these tools, right? So being able to explain said knowledge is always fun to those who are not familiar. Um, and that, I think that's, for me, that's the best part, because I think one thing you probably one theme of this entire story is that I really like to learn. I like to learn new things, and I don't, when I get bored, I want to pivot to something different. And so, not that I'm getting bored now, but I just want to keep learning and keep growing that skills. Um, how long have I been in tech? How many years? So I'll give you like the years. So I graduated from college in 2017, in
Mm.
2017. And so this whole story is just in a matter of 3 or 4 years.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Wow. I'm a dinosaur compared to you.
So so
Uh,
so I still have so much to learn. Like I'm sure there are people here who are, doing AI, big data, machine learning, all that, really more complicated stuff that I'm not as interested in. But I still think it's just as valuable. Data scientists and things of that nature. So I still have a lot to learn, but I know I want to pivot more towards cloud because I think it's just far more interesting. Maybe AWS in the next year or two as well. But for sure, cloud is kind of where my mindset is right now.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. Well. Let me just say this. I find your story super inspiring. I had, no idea that I was going to be able to, hear this story today and how powerful it's been, because it hits a lot of the elements of what I talk about on this channel, from not just getting into tech, but how you have to be a student, how you have
Mm.
to push the boundaries, how you have to be a good citizen, how you have to network and leverage soft skills, how you um, have to just be relentless with getting whatever it is that you want to get to, and consistently, you know, create a vision for yourself and execute and execute and execute. And I love that you even said your handle is like Ella puts in work. Like, this is freaking remarkable. It's just lined up perfectly. So I thank you so much for coming on, telling your story, because you're a young lady who I, people always talk about. You get it out of the mud. It's something that I get from Big Brother PBO. You get it out of the mud, right? You got to come out of the mud, from going from homeless at certain points of your life to having imposter syndrome, and you still being the person who you know delivers and look for opportunities to kick the door in, and you're not afraid. You're not afraid of the challenge. You're like, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this.
Mm.
Anybody can do this, right? Like, I love the fact that
Trust
that
me.
message just
Whoo,
resonates, man.
yes. Yes, trust me. If I can do it, when I say this, I don't mean it like, I truly do mean it. Like, if I can do this, trust me, a lot of you guys can. When I was in college, I deliberately chose not to take a single math class. We had to like take a quantitative based course. I deliberately did not want to take any sort of math class because I just wanted to avoid it at all costs. I was so scared and intimidated by anything quant, anything numbers, anything with letters that associated with numbers. Like, what? um, but now it's I'm so much more comfortable with it, and it just takes that time, just kind of just trying it, just seeing if you can do it. Maybe watch some YouTube videos, maybe go on, one of those Udemy type websites. Just try, see if you like it. There's so many different avenues to go down. And once again, I think you would be doing yourself a disservice by not trying. That's the very least you could do, especially if you want to do better for yourself or do more for yourself. I think just trying, see if you like it. If you have any questions about like any resources that I've used, feel free to reach out to me and I can let you know. And I think another thing is baby steps. Don't try
Mm,
to, especially if you don't come from a traditionally STEM based background, don't try to think you can do it all in like 2 months. Really take the time to start small and work your way up or work your way through the knowledge, because the foundation is going to be super important as you progress, no matter which direction you go in. And so for me, the baby steps, I always celebrate every win I get. So baby steps is kind of what's really led me to where I am today.
I love that. I absolutely love
Yeah.
that. I just dropped your LinkedIn handle into the chat
Awesome.
as well too, just in case somebody wanted to check in with you. Miss Adrian Nash is in the house as well too. She be getting it out of the mud as well too, getting to grad school as well. So guys, this has been absolutely remarkable. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us today for this wonderful segment of the Black Heights. I don't even know what you call it. Ella's journey today. Ella talks IT. Ella talks her journey.
and you know, I also want to thank you, especially because I mean, I've watched a ton of your videos, as I'm sure a lot of people who are on the chat today do or have. And I think you are doing, you know, really good work. And as someone who, you know, traditionally doesn't come from a STEM background, just watching someone who, you know, kind of resembles you in some ways, showcase what's out there, and who truly has the spirit to really be helpful and want to be helpful in showcasing like hey, this is what we have going on in the world. You know, these are free resources for you. I tremendously appreciate you for that, because if it were not for you, I wouldn't have even probably considered WGU. If it were not for you, I wouldn't have even reached out to thank you and to offer people help as far as Booz Allen goes. So I definitely thank you so much for the videos you make, because it's very valuable for a lot of us.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ella.
Absolutely.
That's why I do it. That's the reason why I do it, and I appreciate you for continuing to rock with us, and you know, you coming on the platform and being able to share your story as well too, guys. I think this has been absolutely fantastic. I say this, Ella. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on and share your story. It's been absolutely wonderful. You know, if you need anything from me, please do reach out. You know how to reach out to me. You're welcome on this platform at any point in time. I definitely want to have you back, you know, in the near future to tell everybody else what else you're doing, because you're going to be doing something else, right? You're going to be leveling up again. Yep. We gotta make sure we gotta make sure we continuously are pushing each other and so forth to continue to level up. So thank you so much for coming on today. And guys, you know how we do it. You know how we do it. And until next time, y'all. Peace.
Thank you.
Absolutely.